Hi everyone, this is Pavani. In the last topic we discussed autotrophic nutrition. Now we will discuss about heterotrophic nutrition. What are heterotrophs? First you have to learn that these are the organisms which depend on other organisms for their food and nutrition. These type of organisms we are calling it as heterotrophs, and the nutrition type we are calling it as heterotrophic type of nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition, the organism depends on other organisms for the food and nutrition are called heterotrophs, and the nutrition type we are calling it as heterotrophic type of nutrition. This heterotrophic nutrition varies in different types of organisms depending upon their complete structure and dependency of on other organisms. How they are depending upon other organisms, it is of various types. First, saprophytic type of nutrition. This is the best example for mushrooms. Mushrooms generally where they can grow, they will grow on the dead and decaying organic matter. That means logs, decaying wood, otherwise logs we can say that. Logs are nothing but cut wood parts of the plants. So such type of organic matter is useful for the growth of the mushrooms. How they are taking nutrition? They will form their mycorrhiza on the wood and they will try to decay the complex molecules of the wood particles into simple particles, and then they will absorb the nutrition. So the digestion is occurring outside the body and absorption. After digestion, they will absorb the food materials or nutrition from the other organism. That type of nutrition we call it as saprophytic type of nutrition. Another best example for saprophytic is called yeast. Yeast, this is the this also belongs to fungi. And bread mold. You know that on bread a white color fungi we can observe in our refrigerators. So that is one of the saprophytic type of nutrition, we can say that. And mushrooms you already know. Next, go to parasitic type of nutrition. What do you mean by parasite? First of all, parasites are the organisms which depend on other organisms. It is a one type of heterotrophic nutrition. These also depend on other organisms, but they won't cause any harm to the other organism. But here saprophytic, they are decaying that matter. So they are causing some harm to that organic material. But parasites won't cause any harm to the organism, but they will live or depend on the other organism. Suppose cuscuta is the plant which grows on other plants and they will absorb water and food materials from higher plants. Next, lice, ticks, leeches, tapeworms. Tapeworms, what are tapeworms? These are the intestinal worms. Leeches, you know. So these type of organisms, I will call it as parasites. As a tapeworm, this type of worms, they will live in intestine and absorb the food material. What we are taking, they will absorb that food material. Leeches also, they will stick on the skin and they will suck the blood. It is a parasitic mode of nutrition. So saprophytic, parasitic, these two already you have learned in your lower classes. But there is another type of nutrition, that is holozoic type of nutrition. What is that? Holozoic type of nutrition. In this type of nutrition, the organisms will engulf the food material at a time. Engulfing means intaking the food. After intaking the food, the organism undergoes a process of digestion. Next, that digested food will eliminate it outside the body. Such type of nutrition we are calling it as holozoic type of nutrition. These can be occur in amoeba like parasites paramecium, and humans. Amoeba and paramecium are unicellular organisms. This type of holozoic nutrition varies from unicellular to multicellular organisms depending upon the way of modification of their body. In unicellular organism, they does not contain any type of digestive system. In such type of organism, the digestion varies when compared to the multicellular organism like animals and humans. Animals and humans generally they possesses a large alimentary canal, so that the process of digestion undergoes different types of steps. But in unicellular organism like amoeba, see, amoeba develops a false foot-like appearance. This we are calling it as pseudopodia. This pseudopodia helps in the engulfing or ingestion of the food. This process is called ingestion. After ingestion, the digestion process occurs by developing a food vacuole inside the cell. After digestion, digested food has to be absorbed by the cell. After absorption, this food material should assimilate out by the process digestion. So these are the different steps you can observe in unicellular organism. Nutrition in paramecium. We have observed how the amoeba is taking inside the food and undergoing different steps. In the same way, the paramecium will also undergoes different steps in its nutrition process. See, there is a difference between paramecium and amoeba. That amoeba develops a pseudopodia to engulf the food material. But paramecium is having some hair-like structures outside. These are called cilia. Cilia is helpful to move towards the food particles. See, here is a vestibule. So the vestibule opens to capture the food here, and this captured food undergoes moves into the buccal cavity where it develops a food vacuole. This food vacuole will circulate all over the body, and finally after assimilation the digested food will moves outside the body through a cytophiles. This undigested food particles we can observe here. So this intake of food, ingestion, digestion, absorption and assimilation, and finally digestion. So all the steps what we are observing in amoeba, same steps we can recognize here. So not only amoeba, paramecium like unicellular organism, but a well highly organized complex organism, that is humans, can also undergo such type of nutrition we will discuss. Nutrition in humans. We know that different body parts will compose to form a digestive system. This system is also called as alimentary canal. Is the digestive system in humans constitutes mouth, buccal cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and finally anus. So you can observe in the diagram that mouth leads to buccal cavity leads to esophagus, then stomach, next small intestine, large intestine, anus, and rectum, and then anus. So this constitutes a pathway of the digestive system. This pathway we call it as alimentary canal. Different parts of the digestive system constitutes to form a alimentary canal. How these food is helpful to digest in these parts means with the help of enzymes. Enzymes are nothing but proteins, but all proteins are not called enzymes. All the enzymes we can call it as proteins, but all proteins are not enzymes. So these are biological catalysts. So biological catalyst means here in a reaction, in the presence of some molecules, the reaction will take place, that we call it as a catalyst. You can observe that if writing any equation, we will have a reactants and products. In between that, there will be a catalyst acting between the reaction. So that we call it as a catalyst. Here also in digestive system, different molecules are digested in different body parts. So those will be digested with the help of enzymes. These enzymes, these are called biological catalyst. And you have to remember one point, that enzymes are proteins, but all proteins are not enzymes. Here, the ingestion process, the food is entered into the mouth. Here, the mouth consists of salivary glands. The mouth consists of salivary glands, which is useful to release saliva. Saliva consists of salivary amylase. The saliva consists of salivary amylase. This amylase is helpful to break down or act upon the carbohydrates. You know that we are taking carbohydrate rich food. So most of the carbohydrates are acted upon by salivary amylase in the mouth. And tongue and teeth are useful to chew the food and mix it with the saliva. So this chewed food along with the saliva, we will call it as a chyme. What is that? Chyme. This chyme will enter into the esophagus. What is esophagus? It is a long pipe-like structure. We call it as food pipe. This food pipe is useful to enter into the stomach. So esophagus is a pipe-like structure, and this chyme, the saliva mixed food, forms into a bolus-like structure. We call it as chyme. This chyme will form as a ball-like structures that will enter into the stomach through the peristaltic movements. Peristaltic movements means, see, it's a food pipe-like structure, so the food has to move. These movements can be these movements which are formed in throughout the alimentary canal, we call it as peristaltic movements. Through peristaltic movements, the food will carry into the esophagus and reaches the stomach. Here in the stomach, there is a sphincter muscle between the esophagus and stomach, so that this esophageal sphincter is helpful not to go back the food into the esophagus. After entering into the stomach, here the stomach releases 3 types of enzymes. Those are HCl, pepsin and mucus. Pepsin is useful for the digestion of proteins. This is released with the help of HCl. So what is HCl? Hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is used to make the food acidic, so as to kill the bacteria. The main function of the HCl is to kill the bacteria and make the food acidic. So after making it into acidic form, it also releases an enzyme, that is pepsin, which is useful for the digestion of proteins in the stomach. Next, mucus is the one type of substance that is released by the stomach. This mucus is helpful for the protection of the stomach inner walls. So here the stomach inner walls are made up of mucus layer. How it is helpful means, it is helpful in protection of the stomach, because HCl is a concentrated one and it's acidic. So to protect the stomach from this acidity, these walls are protected by this mucous membrane. So from after getting digested in the stomach, this food will enter into the small intestine. This food will enter into the small intestine. So here from the stomach there is a sphincter muscle that is called pyrolic sphincter muscle, which is used to open and enter into the small intestine here. So now you have to learn that in mouth, salivary glands releases salivary amylase. In stomach, 3 enzymes HCl, pepsin and mucus are formed in the stomach. Now digestion in small intestine. See, the complexity varies here. In herbivorous organisms, the small intestine is very much extended and consists of long coil-like tube-like structure here. Whereas in carnivores, it is not much expanded because the herbivores consumes grass and plant parts. Here the grass and plant parts consist of cellulose. Cellulose is a type of sugar molecules or the carbohydrates which are tough to digest in the digestive system. So for that, their small intestine is very much extended so as to digest this type of sugars, that is cellulose. So they have a long small intestine, whereas carnivores consist of short small intestine because they will consume meat as the food material. So this is the difference between herbivores and carnivores, why they consist different type of small intestine. So next, in small intestine, liver, pancreas and these intestinal walls plays an important role in releasing different substances. What are they? We will see. Liver will releases bile. Bile is a juice which consists of bile salts. These bile salts will acted upon the fats. So when we consume complex molecules, in that complex molecules, the fats are in large globular molecules. That means if you can observe that if you take a glass of water and add some oil in that, you can see that large globular molecules will float on the water surface. So that you can observe that the molecules are very big in size, so that those are not absorbed by the body directly. For that process, emulsification will take place. Emulsification is nothing but breaking down the larger globular fat molecules into simple molecules. This can be done by bile salt. So after emulsification, these emulsified fats are acted by lipase. Lipase is nothing but a juice which is released by pancreas. Pancreas releases pancreatic juice. This juice consists of lipase and trypsin. Lipase is acted upon these emulsified fats and trypsin will act on proteins. Next, intestinal juice. After the action of these enzymes, this intestinal juice will convert the proteins into amino acids, carbohydrates into glucose and fats into fatty acids and glycerols. These are the products after reacting with the intestinal juice. We can observe from proteins, carbohydrates and fats. So they are directly converted into amino acids, glucose, fatty acids and glycerol. These digested food particles will be absorbed in the intestine by villi. Villi are nothing but finger-like projections which are present in the innermost lining of the small intestine. Here these villi absorbs the food material which is digested by intestinal juice, and this will be absorbed into the body through blood vessels. After digestion and absorption, these villi after absorption, these molecules which are undigested remained material or the waste material, this material will enters into the large intestine. Here you can observe here. And here large intestine will take the waste material here and sends. This large intestine is useful for the absorption of water. After that, absorption of water, this waste material will carry out into the rectum here. Here the rectum stores food, waste material and moved outside through in the form of feces through the anus. Here there is a sphincter muscle here at the anal region. This will acted upon to and helps in the movement of feces through the anus. So this is the digestion process we can observe in humans, that is a holozoic type of nutrition. After this we will discuss respiration in the next session.